Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I'm Giovanni Cerulli. I'm the scientific coordinator of the FOSS project, and I'm really happy and at the same time, emotionally touched by the fact that this is the first day of the FOSSR days that are going to start exactly with this session. Let me just thank, in particular, the speakers that will intervene today, and in particular, those that work on this important policy brief. I'm referring to Giulia Andrighetto, Maria Bigoni, Loredana Cerbara, Claudia Pennacchiotti, Andrea Simone, Andrea Orazio Spinello, and Eva Rins. And they will, of course, give their speech, and they will be able to speak about this very interesting topic, which is high quality, high frequency individual data production in Italy, innovation introduced by FOSSR, which is our project and future infrastructure. So the main idea is that today we are going to speak of what we could consider, in my opinion, the flagships of our project, in particular the two panels that are the ORP and the YOP panels, as well as the PULPO, which is another panel for experimental studies. I think that the novelty stands on different elements, and in the title you can see not only high quality data that are fair data with all the attributes that make them really usable and trustable in applications, but also high frequency social data, which is not so common in the social science domain. I don't want to tell too much because I think that our colleagues, they have a lot to say, and they will be much abler than me to explain what these panels are going to, why these panels are so useful, and what are the main novelties and relevant aspects all around this. So I don't want to spend too much time, and I would like to just thank the organizer and all the people attending as well, and welcome to the FOSSR days. And I'm going to leave the floor to Andrea Orazio Spinello, who is going to start this session. Thank you very much, and see you with me tomorrow. Bye-bye. Enjoy, of course, the presentation by Andrea.
Thank you, Giovanni. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Andrea Orazio Spinello from the Research Institute on Sustainable Economic Growth, Cnr Ircres, and I am one of the service leaders of the FOSSR project. FOSSR project, which ambition is to develop a meta-research infrastructure, as you know, to advance social science research in Italy. This presentation is based on a joint work by 7 authors from 3 CNR institutes. They are listed on this slide, and I would like to thank all of them for their collaboration. I will be sharing this presentation with 2 other service leaders, Loredana Cerbara and Giulia Andrighetto, and we will take turns in guiding you through the presentation. The focus of this presentation is the capacity to produce high quality and high frequency individual level data in a way that is publicly governed, transparent, and above all, usable both for scientific research and for policy purposes. In particular, we will illustrate the innovation introduced by FOSSR by showing how different data services can be combined within an integrated research infrastructure. The starting point is the growing complexity of contemporary societal challenges. Social, demographic, and economic dynamics are not only becoming more complex in terms of the number of relevant dimensions involved. Complexity today also concerns speed and interconnection among phenomena. changes in trust, political attitudes, risk perception, or responses to crisis occur rapidly and tend to reinforce one another. And these processes unfold in a relatively short time. And so, for policymakers and researchers, this creates a double need. On the one hand, reliable evidence to be produced with solid methodological foundations, and on the other hand, timely and granular data, not only to describe what is ongoing, but also to anticipate the potential effects of policies in rapidly evolving context. This is why innovative research services capable of delivering reliable and rapid data are becoming necessary tools. In particular, research panels and large-scale experimental laboratories play an important role in responding to these needs. Research panels are important in this respect because they enable the continuous observation of social dynamics. Panels enable to track changes in attitudes, behaviors, and living conditions over time by collecting repeated measurement from the same individuals. At the same time, panels can also be used in a cross-sectional way, allowing to capture snapshots at specific moments. The increasing diffusion of internet access across the population has led to the widespread adoption of online panels, through which participants provide data directly through their digital devices. In this regard, it's useful to distinguish between two types of online panels: probability-based panels, in which participants are randomly selected from population registers, and these panels provide the foundation for population inference. They are costly, time-consuming to build, but they generate high-value data suitable for statistical generalization. On the other side, we have non-probability opt-in panels, which rely on voluntary participation and are therefore characterized by self-selection. But these panels are faster, more flexible, and more cost-efficient, and are particularly well-suited for analyzing trends, relation between variables, and above all, dynamics of specific subpopulations. These types of panels are not competing tools. Their value depends on being used in a fit-for-purpose manner, which is aligned with the informational goals of the analysis that is to be developed. Large-scale behavioral laboratories add a further dimension to this ecosystem. They provide researchers with access to extensive pool of participants for experimental research. They allow researchers to isolate specific variables, compare multiple experimental conditions, and systematically replicate findings. And from a policy perspective, this is particularly important because experimental design helps us understand how policies may actually work in practice. In this sense, large-scale laboratories enhance our capacity to generate causal evidence that can inform policy design and evaluation. So, for a long time, Italy has lacked a public, open, and collaborative research infrastructure capable of making research panels and experimental platforms accessible at scale. And the FOSSR project was developed precisely to address this gap. The ambition of FOSSR is to build an integrated ecosystem composed of 2 online panels, a large-scale laboratory platform, and other services designed to enhance the capacity of social science to deliver timely, reliable, and policy-relevant evidence. The core idea is the integration, different services, and different methodologies combined within a single publicly governed framework. So now we will describe these services in the next slide one by one. But before it, I leave the floor to my colleague Loredana Cerbara to address the real topics of our policy brief. Leave the floor to Loredana.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much. I'm Loredana Cerbara. I'm a researcher of Institute of Population and Social Policies of CNR, and I'm a leader of IOPP panel of FOSSR that I will describe following in this presentation. So I want to introduce some important things that we have to focus on now. The first one is the data have to be considered the public good, but especially in this case, high quality social data can be treated as a public good, no? Available for many stakeholders, universities, research institutions, and policymakers. I don't know. So it's important to produce, for a public point of view, very high quality data, because other things of data are available in private context. No? Our aim is to cover a need in a public context and answer to a need of information about many stakeholders that work for public interest. In terms of users, so the policymakers and academics and students can use how we produce inside FOSSR with our panels. And important is to the participation, the dimension of participation, because we are currently living in a context in which there is political disengagement, declining trust in institutions, and social fragmentation. In this scenario, participatory research ecosystems can play a key role. So, because citizens have the opportunity not only to respond to surveys, but also to actively contribute to collective knowledge and support democratic debate, they participated, no? In this sense, participation practice. And also the protection of participant rights is something very important. We assure in our ecosystem the data protection, informed consent, and ethical standards will be respected. Also, a very important thing is ensure that data are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Our data are fair, as usually can see. No, go ahead, please, Andrea. So, we try to answer to questions of public interest. I want to spend just a little bit of time on these two words, but because they are very important. No? We are responding to a need, as I said before, and also Andrea too. We respond a need to the public interest. This is not a detail, but a cornerstone for us that guides every one of our choices, both methodologically and in our relationship with stakeholders. So the question we intend to answer contributed to understanding how citizen attitudes and behaviors change over time, and this is essential for addressing major social challenges from inequality, vulnerability, political participation, social cohesion. To do this, we need timely, high quality and longitudinal data, as Andrea said before. Go ahead, please. Here, just a brief description of IOP, following the other two services will be described. IOP is going to be the first online probability panel in Italy that is able to generate longitudinal survey data to monitor social changes in Italy and enhance fair and open data, is composed by people between 18 and 74 years old residing in Italy, and include 5 annual survey waves featuring a core questionnaire and rotating module that will be introduced by open calls addressed to scholars. And is important because IOP will align Italy to international benchmark for innovation in data collection and cover a broad range of topics: family and housing, education, working life, income, vulnerability, inequality, poverty, all the things you will can see here. Go ahead, please. So to finish my presentation, I would like to illustrate you a list of sources from what we had the inspiration to build our questionnaires for both core questionnaire and rotating questionnaire. This is important because this can be interpreted like a dimension of our fairness, no? Because in this way, the information we produce is immediately comparable with the data produced by leading institutions. Because you can see, go ahead also, next slide, you can see a very long list of important institutions, national and international one, and that make the data immediately comparable between Italy and other contexts, also abroad. So now I give the floor to Andrea to illustrate ORP. Now, Andrea, you have microphone.
Okay, thank you. ORP is the acronym for Online Research Panel. What is ORP? ORP is an opt-in non-probability panel composed of 10,000 adult residents in Italy, and is complemented by a reserve sample of other 1,500 additional units. ORP is conceived as an open science service. What does it mean? The objective of ORP is twofold. On one side, to enable scholars, researchers from universities and research centers, as well as representatives of civil society, to conduct online surveys for scientific research. On the other side, providing open access to the data generated by the panel for secondary analysis, anonymized data, of course, both for scientific community and for decision makers. ORP has been active since October 2025, and is the result of a coordinated effort led by my research institute, Cnr Ircres, in collaboration with specialized partners as Carlo Cattaneo Research Foundation and Demetrio Opinioni. So at this point, it is important to clarify the role of non-probability or opt-in panels in policy-relevant research. Non-probability panels, as you know, are affected by self-selection bias. This is well known in literature and should be never ignored. However, the methodological literature is very clear on another point. These panels are extremely valuable when used appropriately for specific analytical purposes. They are particularly well suited for high-frequency data collection, the study of emerging or rapidly evolving issues, and within fit-for-purpose designs for multivariate analysis and causal modeling, and above all, targeted research on specific subpopulations that are difficult to reach through standard probability-based designs. So opt-in panels, when combined with careful recruitment strategies of the participants, calibration procedures, and expert-driven management, they can deliver high-quality analytical evidence, especially in contexts where timeliness and flexibility are needed. So what are the main features of ORP? First of all, the panel composition is calibrated ex ante through quota sampling on key socio-demographic variables, as you can see: gender, class, age, educational attainment, regional residence, and municipality size. Participation in the panel is voluntary and is based on a double opt-in procedure designed to prevent fraud and the inclusion of unauthentic participants. Enrollment was conducted through online campaigns on social media and a dedicated registration website. When surveys are administered within ORP, remaining imbalances in data are addressed ex post through post-certification and iterative calibration techniques, producing survey weights. We have also a sustainability strategy. Sustainability is addressed ensuring panelist engagement anytime with periodic communication to maintain active the panelists, and periodic refreshment procedures. Finally, as I told before, openness is a core principle of ORP. Both the panel and the data generated by the panel are accessible to the scientific community. And ORP is a single panel designed to support multiple surveys. And it hosts a flagship longitudinal survey, CIVES Observatory on Civicness and Evolution of Society, developed by Ircres in collaboration with the Carlo Cattaneo Research Foundation. CIVES Observatory illustrates very clearly the type of evidence that ORP can support. It is a multidimensional longitudinal survey covering a wide range of domains, including socio-demographics, trust, civic and political participation, science and research, with a specific focus on a subpopulation, the PhD holders. political agendas, values, emerging challenges such as artificial intelligence. We already conducted the first wave of CIVES Observatory. We conducted it at the end of 2025, and we achieved a notable response rate of 64%, which represents an excellent result for an online survey of this scale. For policymakers and researchers, this means to have access to rich multidimensional data capable of capturing how attitudes and behaviors evolve across different domains, not in isolation, but in an integrated and analytical, meaningful way. So now I leave the floor to the third service, to my colleague Giulia Andrighetto, who will describe Pulpo.
Andrea, thanks a lot, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Giulia Andrighetto. I'm a researcher at the Institute of Cognitive Science and Technology of Rome, and I'm also the service leader of Pulpo, that is the online laboratory that I'm going to present. So Pulpo is an online platform that makes it possible to recruit participants for experiments that are conducted both online and in person. Let me start by saying that this service has been developed in collaboration also with Greens. This is an extended partnership based at the University of Bologna, and we have developed this platform, this service, with Professor Maria Bigoni from the University of Bologna, and with the support, a very important support of Indice Opponibili, that was the technical partner that helped us developing the platform. So Pulpo is a platform that makes it possible to connect researchers, experimenters in economics and social sciences with participants, with subjects. It allows a rapid, reliable, and large-scale data collection. And it's possible to, it allows to recruit participants both for on-site experiments and online experiments, and also surveys. And ideally, we would like to have a broad base, create a broad base of volunteers of about 50,000 subjects recruited nationwide. So let me say that, just a second, Andrea. Let me say that at present, experimental research in Italy, especially in the field that I know the best, that is behavioral social sciences, is very active internationally, but is also highly fragmented. So this fragmentation comes with some cost, coordination costs, heterogeneity in protocols and in data standards. And also there are very small and homogeneous and geographically bounded sample of subjects. And this, of course, can create problems for the external validity of the experiments, the statistical power, and the replicability of the experimental findings. And in Italy, we have another issue that behavioral labs, experimental labs, are mainly located in central Italy and northern Italy, while southern regions are underrepresented. So the aim of Pulpo is that of providing a centralized, secure, and user-friendly infrastructure to advance research in the experimental social science in Italy, and also to foster collaboration among researchers across the different regions. Go ahead, please, Andrea. Thanks a lot. So Pulpo is an app that is accessible both from mobiles and also desktop, and it has one interface that is for participants. And in order to register, you need to have at least 18 years. And you also need to possess an Italian taxpayer code. Then once, if you want to register, then you need to provide your privacy consent. It's important that you regularly update your socio-demographic information. This is very important for the experimenters that want to screen then subjects based on this information. Then through this app, as a participant, you will receive invitations. You can register to those studies that you like the most. You can receive reminders, and what is important that you accumulate points, and these points then can be converted into either vouchers or cash, so you can be paid. for your performances. And also you get involved in a gamified experience that is a way for us to keep subjects active and involved in the platform. Go ahead, please, Andrea. So this is instead the interface for researchers. Through the app, through Pulpo, experimenters can create invitations for experiments. They can also screen participants based on social demographic information and previous experience, because maybe experimenters, they don't want subjects that have already participated in that specific experiment. It's also possible some complex sampling. For example, an experimenter may want to have 50 males above 30 years old who have been married for at least 5 years, and also 20 females participating in the experiments between 40 and 50. And this is possible through the screening that we have implemented in Pulpo. It's important that researchers do not have access to participants' individual identity. Participants have a unique code, but you cannot link this with the personal information, so anonymity is preserved. It's possible to invite participants, to monitor the recruitment, to record, of course, the participants' activity, and then to pay subjects. Go ahead, please. So here is a video that I would like to show just to give you a more specific idea of how Pulpo appears to participants when they need to register. So the first step is to sign up. Then you enter the details. You can activate the profile by clicking to the confirmation email. Then you enter all your data. Then you, of course, need to confirm. And once the profile is activated, then you can see which are the active and available experiments. You can see how, where, and when it will take place. And then you can also see whether the experiment is a one-shot or a multi-trial. And if it's a multi-trial experiment, then it's possible for you to decide when you want to participate. For example, for the first trial, you want to participate in the early afternoon, while for the second trial in the evening. Then you confirm and you are registered. So this is, and then once you conduct experiment, you can get points to be paid, and also points for your participation. So let's move then to the next slide. This is still the same, Andrea. So if we can move to the next, thanks a lot. So this is instead the interface for researchers. And if you are a researcher, then you can start a new experiment. Then in the new experiment, you can then decide to customize the participant pool. You can decide to select participant based on various attributes. You can also use a logical operator to create more detailed profiles. And once you are done, then there is a simulator that gives you a real-time preview of how many participants are available. Then once the experiment is ready, you can create the session. Once you're satisfied with the experiment, you can create it, and then the invitation is exactly, you need to confirm, and then you can start sending the invitations to the subjects. And then once the experiment started, then you can also monitor the participant status, so you can see how many of them have completed the experiment. And then you can, once the experiment has been finalized, you can pay subjects for their tasks. Thanks a lot. So thanks a lot. So there are already some recruitment platforms that are available for experiments. One that is very famous is Prolific. But we think that Pulpo also offers some advantages over these existing platforms. So one advantage is that it's possible to recruit participants both for online and on-site studies. While typically Prolific is very good for online studies, it's not as good for on-site studies. Then the second one is that it's possible also to have a sample of subjects that are non-professional respondents. This is really important because in many existing platforms now participants take part in many studies, and this can reduce their attention, the attention that they put on your study. It's possible also to link results of different studies. keeping and preserving anonymity, because if we want to link the results of different studies, it's crucial that we ask for consent from the participants. Then it's possible to conduct experiments, on-site experiments in different places at the same time. And this is interesting because, for example, you may want to see whether the same experiment is, so the behavior, the reaction to the same experiment is the same in different Italian regions, for example, Piemonte and Sicily. So it's very interesting for comparing the results, but also because you can have a larger sample of data, so you can replicate the same study and you can see whether the results are robust. And also you can also foster collaboration across different experimental labs in Italy. It's possible also to conduct longitudinal studies, so you can ask participants subjects to participate many times, and this is not so easy using other platforms where the attrition rate is pretty high. It's possible to pay participants directly through the platform. This can seem a minor point, but it's not, because now we are really wasting a lot of money paying fees to third parties that can then pay subjects. And finally, the platform can be used only for non-commercial research. So it's important and is another main difference compared to other existing services. So go ahead, please, Andrea, to the last slide. So how can then Pulpo provide policy relevant evidence? So despite surveys, experiments provide also causal evidence on social dynamics like cooperation, for example, non-compliance, and also they provide causal evidence on how participants might react to interventions, informational interventions or nudges. Those experiments provide a controlled context where it's possible to test multiple interventions with clear comparison. So it's possible to really test which are the relative pros and cons of different interventions in a controlled way. It's possible also to target specific participant subgroups. Since it's so large, the subject pool, is also possible to see whether an intervention has an effect on some specific groups, but not on others. The fast data collection provides timely, transparent tracking of behaviors, attitudes, and norms over time. All these data, all these findings are important to test theory and inform the design and also the evaluation of public policy. We all know that translating to policy requires a rigorous evaluation before field deployment. This is crucial, so experiments are not enough, but they can provide essential checks, because by conducting and testing an interventions in many different experiments, it's possible to test whether they are robust. By testing them across different groups, you can see whether they work on specific subgroups, but not on others. We can also check whether the cultural and institutional context matters, and also see whether there are some unintended effects. And yeah, that's all. And now pass again the floor to Andrea for the conclusions.
Yes, thank you, Giulia. Let's do just one step behind about what is the policy evidence from the dual panel system, IOPP and ORP. And before an observation, Loredana and I did not prepare a demonstration because the functioning of the panels is very classical. They use the CAWI methodology, the computer-assisted web interview, based on invitation sent via email or phone, and participants are invited to participate in surveys conducted by a platform built on Lime survey, expressing their explicit consent to participate in the survey, and then they participate. All the surveys from IOPP and ORP are ethically approved and approved by the data protection officer of the CNR. So, what is the policy evidence of the dual panel system, which integrates the Italian online probability panel and the online research panel? The first thing to say is that different policy questions require no single data source that can effectively address all informational needs. By combining a probability-based panel with a non-probability one, FOSSR creates a system that is both methodologically robust and operationally flexible. IOPP on one side provides reliable population benchmarks and supports inference about the Italian population and ensure comparability with major European survey infrastructures. On the other side, ORP is designed to complement this robustness with speed and adaptability. As an opt-in panel, it allows for high-frequency data collection, rapid deployment, and the possibility to include new survey modules from time to time, very quickly. What matters, however, is not the simple coexistence of these two panels, but their integration within a single research infrastructure. Because IOPP and ORP are developed, managed, and documented in a transparent way by a public institution, by professional researchers, and within the same framework. So from a policy perspective, this dual panel approach enables what we refer to a fit-for-purpose policy analysis. It allows decision makers to rely on probability-based evidence when representativeness and generalization are important to take, while also making use of non-probability data when speed, granularity, and analytical flexibility are needed. So finally, the last point is that it is important to emphasize is that IOPP and ORP are conceived as open science services. This means that they not only produce data, but also promote access, transparency, inclusivity, and participation in the production of policy-relevant knowledge. So thank you very much. Thanks to my colleagues. And I leave the floor for the discussion of our presentation. Thank you. Sorry, we have a last slide because we want to thank all the teams that compose the group of IOPP, ORP, and Pulpo. Maybe we can introduce very briefly them, Loredana and Giulia, very quickly. Loredana?
Yes, I can't read the list because it's too large, but we are a very large group in the CNR inside the FOSSR project, and also we collaborate with the University of Milan, but we are also supported by private companies, CSA Intellera for recruitment on the national territory, and also technical support by Social Web Solutions and Ecolab that are really important, no? Because in this project we experimented a very large number of things very new for us and also for the research. Andrea or Giulia, as you want.
Yeah, just a few words to say thanks to all the team that you can see listed on this slide, because the work day by day to build this panel was very, very hard, and we succeeded in it. And I want to thank all the group for the effort, for the collaboration. Giulia.
Yeah, I also would like to thank the group that is behind Pulpo. So Eva Brinza is the researcher that was also behind the development of this platform. And both of us are part of the Institute of Cognitive Science and Technology. And as I mentioned before, this platform has been built in collaboration with Professor Maria Bigoni from the University of Bologna. That was financed by the project Greens. And so since the beginning, the very first day, we started building this platform together. And then we had a fantastic support from Indice Opponibili, that is the technical partner that helped us and supported us with the development of the platform. So I would also like to thank all the team for working together in the last 3 years at the creation of this service.
So it's time to say thank you. Giovanni?
So if Giovanni is not here, maybe I can give the floor to the discussant, whoever wants to start, or we can also follow the alphabetical order as you prefer. It's up to you. Thank you very much.
So I don't know what the alphabetical order is, but if
It's okay if you want to start, it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I can start. So let me wait. So can I share my presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, so can you see it?
Perfectly.
Good. And can you hear me well?
Exactly. Perfect.
Okay, good. So thank you very much, Andrea, Loredana, and Giulia for this excellent policy brief and presentation. I'm Dominique Cappelletti. I'm a researcher at Fondazione Bruno Kessler in Trento. Specifically, I work at the Research Institute for the Evaluation of Public Policy. The acronym is IRVAP. So my background is in experimental and behavioral economics. And my research focuses, among other things, are, let's say, the promotion of evidence-based, or if you like, evidence-informed policymaking, and fostering a culture of policy evaluation among policymakers and public officials. So that's why I'm particularly interested in the FOSSR project, and very happy to share some comments on this. And for, let's say, professional deformation, Pulpo in particular, underlying, let's say, the potential for evidence-based policymaking. Let's see. Okay, so I believe that the FOSSR project has the potential to become a crucial tool for evidence-based policymaking in Italy. In particular, Pulpo offers something extremely important: the ability to establish causal relationships through control experiments. And this is precisely what evidence-based policymakers requires. Evidence-based policymaking has emerged as a fundamental principle of better governance, based on the core idea that public policies should be informed by the most reliable and robust research evidence, especially those derived from methodological sound scientific studies, in order to increase effectiveness and efficiency of public programs. On the demand side, we observe a growing institutional pressure for evidence. Let's think about the European Commission Better Regulation Guidelines, the US Foundation Evidence-Based Policymaking Act, and there are also international organizations like OECD or the World Bank that have made evidence-informed policymakers a cornerstone of good governance standards. On the basis of a recent study that we have conducted in FBK-IRVAP, I can say that there also a great interest among Italian policymakers. I will tell a few words about this later on. On the supply side, over the past 20 years, we have assisted to the so-called credibility revolution that has resulted in a substantial body of reliable empirical findings on the causal effect of public policies. Still, there remain significant barriers that prevent scientific evidence from effectively informing policy design processes. So about policy makers, in Italy, the literature is very scarce. So let's say to a bit fill this gap within the policy aid project that was financed by the Greens partnership with the PNR funds, we conducted a study to investigate attitudes, barriers, current use, preferences of policymakers for the use of evidence in policy making. In this project, we conducted in-depth interviews with 23 Italian policymakers nationwide, and also we filled a structured survey with experimental components to more than 1,000 Italian policymakers with both, with political or administrative roles from different government level. So based on the literature and also on the results of our studies, here I would like to highlight 3 specific barriers that I think the FOSSR project, and in particular Pulpo, can address somehow. So the first one is timeliness. Policymakers typically require rapid access to evidence to inform policy. Also, research shows that timeliness matters significantly for policy influence. On the other side, research results come with delay. So let's think about how much time we take to have a study published somewhere. So there is a mismatch from this temporal point of view. So the problem is that policymakers are increasingly using generative AI like ChatGPT for rapid scientific evidence access. And this is problematic because we all know that AI presents several limitations: imprecise information, no access to primary sources, and most of all, hallucinations. That means the creation of entirely invented evidence. Also, non-existent randomized controlled trials, for example, that appear plausible, no, to the, let's say, untrained reader. So how Pulpo address this? Pulpo enables rapid experimental testing of policy-relevant questions. So instead of relying on potentially unreliable AI summaries of foreign studies, policymakers can commission, for example, direct experimental evidence on Italian population within weeks. This provides timely, context-specific, methodological, rigorous findings precisely when decisions need to be made. So this platform means that researchers can quickly require, let's say, a substantial pool of participants, diverse also, and run experiments and deliver results, creating a sort of just-in-time evidence pipeline that matches the, let's say, the temporal needs of the policymaking. So the second barrier is the contextual relevance. So if evidence comes from different context other than those that of policymakers, for example, many studies are conducted in the US. So there is a legitimate concern by policymakers about the external validity. So they might ask, are US-based, for example, findings still valid in different institutional, cultural, or demographic settings. Literature shows that policymakers value a lot all the studies that are conducted on populations similar to their own. So, in other words, we see that findings are all valuable, but what, let's say, take the attention of policymakers are those results that are produced in, let's say, relevant population. So policymakers prioritize contextual relevance and local knowledge. So how PULPO addresses this? PULPO provides a platform for conducting high-quality experimental research, specifically on Italian population, addressing the external validity gap directly. So rather than extrapolating from studies conducted in other places, Italian policymakers can assess evidence generated directly in their own institutional and cultural setting. Moreover, PULPO has, this huge subject pool that allows for subgroup analysis and testing across different demographic segments, like urban versus rural, different age groups, regional variation, and stuff. That can further enhance the contextual relevance and applicability of findings to specific policy domains. And the third one is the connection between policymakers and researchers. So the literature emphasizes the fact that collaboration and relationship between the research community and policymaker is crucial to facilitate the use of policy relevance evidence. So what PULPO can do, I think, is providing the opportunity for collaborative environments where policymakers can be actively involved in shaping research questions and experimental design. Also, the European Commission and OECD highlights that strengthening ties between research organizations, let's say the research community in general, and policymakers and public administration is an essential way for evidence uptake. Okay, I think that also sustained collaboration is also important to keep policymakers' enthusiasm for experimentation also after null results or results that are contrary to expectations. And I refer this to recent research that shows that when experiments produce unexpected or null results, policymakers may not only, let's say, lose enthusiasm for a specific intervention, but they can in general lose, let's say, faith in experimentation itself. So they become less willing to fund for future experiments, for example, and even they might extend their skepticism to scientific methods more broadly. So this implies keeping the policymakers genuinely engaged through the research process, helping them understand that null results are valuable learning, not failures. Then I would highlight also an emerging thread that is discussed in very recent research, which points to an additional advantage of PULPO compared to existing services, which is the infiltration of synthetic respondents in online research platforms. So, for example, Prolific that Giulia was mentioning before. So modern AI bots can actually bypass standard attention checks or even sophisticated detection questions designed to catch non-humans. And they do this by strategically showing human-like limitation and ignorance. So these autonomous synthetic respondents can maintain a consistent demographic persona, simulate realistic reading times, even produce plausible linguistic error or typos, and they even can infer experimental hypotheses with the risk to produce experimental demand effects, essentially telling you what it thinks you want to hear. And even more concerning is the fact that also this applies to the other two panels of the FOSSR project. They can shift somehow, also manipulate public opinion. So how can Pulpo address this? Actually, Pulpo connects real laboratories and operates with verified registered participants, so not an open web survey which is vulnerable to bot infiltration. And then also the subject pool are recruited to establish channels and maintain verified identities across studies. So this control environment allows also for consistency checks across multiple tasks within the same session and longitudinal verification across studies that somehow could reveal the presence of synthetic respondents attempting to maintain false persona over time. Okay, to conclude, I would like to highlight two complementary ways that laboratory experiments can advance evidence-based policymaking. So on one hand, that was discussed so far, is that using lab experiments is valuable to inform policy design. So this is what basically Pulpo primarily enables, no? So conducted experiments on citizens to understand causal mechanisms, test policy alternatives, generate rapid evidence about how people respond to interventions. This gives us deep understanding of the drivers of behavior, and they can be complemented with field experimentation, for example, allowing for rapid replications or additional testing hypotheses and so on. But on the other hand, there is also a complementary way in which lab experiments can be very valuable. So the second way is conducting experiments with policymakers themselves as participants. So this somehow flips the research question. So instead of studying how citizens respond to policy, we study how policymakers process evidence, for example, or how they make decisions under uncertainty, or how they weigh trade-offs and respond to different ways of communicating research findings. So there is an excellent example of this at the University of Warwick, which is the Policymakers Lab. So they built a dedicated pool of public servants and politicians from around the world who participates in online surveys and experiments specifically designed to understand policymakers' decision-making. So in this way, this type of research helps us understand the demand side of evidence-based policymakers, not just what evidence we should produce, but how to, let's say, make it usable and actionable for the people who need it. So my closing question is, could Pulpo somehow develop a similar dedicated pool for experiments with policymakers? This would, I think, create a sort of feedback loop. So we use experiments to generate policy relevant evidence, and we use experiments to understand how to make that evidence actually influence policy decision. So I'll stop here and thank you again very much.
So thank you very much. Maybe Salvatore Vassallo, do you want to intervene now?
As you prefer. Thank you. Anyway.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. And let me begin with a genuine note of appreciation. The project presented here, building a national infrastructure for high-quality, high-frequency, individual-level data, is both fascinating and ambitious. It reflects a strategic vision to consider public opinion data collection as an enduring public capability, aimed at analyzing how individual attitudes and behaviors are distributed across the Italian public and how they evolve over time. And I also want to recognize the care and persistence with which the researchers at the Consiglio Nazionale delle Ricerche have brought this forward despite administrative and bureaucratic complexities, to use a euphemism, that usually make infrastructure building in Italy, but maybe not only in Italy, painfully slow. And having observed the process as an external advisor, but step by step, I know how much work is required in addition to the research activities design and the development of the project for governance, compliance, procurement constraints, and looking ahead, how much more effort long-term maintenance will require. So congratulations, and this is not just a methodological undertaking, it is an institutional achievement. In my remarks, I will focus on a core issue that is at the heart of the brief, the trade-offs between online probability panels and online opt-in panels. I will revisit some points the presenter and especially Andrea have already made, because these trade-offs shape what we can credibly claim in research on political orientations, position on divisive issues, attitudes towards science and research institutions, patterns of participation, and broader forms of civicness. I will highlight the main advantages and the main limitations of each instrument. Then I will underline what I see as one of the most valuable design choices in the project, that is having both instruments available in parallel. This enables comparative evaluation of costs, biases, and measurement performance in a way that is rarely possible. And to be full transparent, I'm glad to have been among the early supporters of adding the opt-in component, precisely because of what it enables in comparative terms. So let me start with the online probability panel. Its foundational advantage is that it rests on a probability-based sampling design, as we know. This matters when the aim is population inference in a strong sense, not merely describing patterns in a sample, but estimating how attitudes and behaviors are distributed across the wider population and how this distribution varies across social groups and territories. It matters, for example, when research questions require credible estimations of the prevalence and structure of polarization of divisive issues, or of confidence and distrust in institutions, or of orientations towards science and organizational research. This is the topic of the research. Probability recruitment provides the strongest foundation for this kind of inference. It also supports transparency about the sampling frame, recruitment response patterns, weighting strategies, and the uncertainty surrounding estimates. A second major strength is longitudinal capacity. Many of the constructs we care about are dynamic. Political orientations shift, trust and civic engagement move with events and controversies. Attitudes towards science and expertise can change quickly. Panels allow us to trace these changes at the individual level. They help distinguish genuine attitudinal changes from compositional change in the sample. They enable trajectory analysis, who changes, how quickly, and under what conditions. This is particularly available for research on polarization dynamics and formation, resilience, or erosion of civic dispositions. But let me emphasize this point 3 times. This is true only as long as the design is implemented carefully and fully documented according to what the textbooks prescribe. Furthermore, these trends come with constraints. Probability panels are expensive and operationally demanding, especially when the ambition is high frequency and multi-year continuity. Attrition is not just a logistical issue. It can become a source of bias if dropout is systematically related to political relevant traits such as interest, trust, or engagement. Repeated measurement can also generate panel conditioning. Participants may become more attentive, more reflective, or more strategic in their responses over time. Finally, the online mode raises coverage and participation issues that remain socially patterned. The value of the project is that it treats these as design and quality problems, not as inconveniences to ignore. Now, the online opt-in panel. The case for opt-in panels becomes clear once you think about analytical flexibility, as Andrea already stressed, and research workflow. Opt-in panels are faster, more flexible, and typically more cost-efficient. They can capture attitudinal shifts closer to the moment in which they emerge, which is useful for divisive issues, sudden political events, or rapid changes in institutional trust and civic engagement. They allow rapid testing of question, wording, and survey modules. They support survey experiments aimed at mechanisms of framing affects and causal pathways. In a mixed academic and policy ecosystem, this capacity for rapid interaction is a genuine asset for cumulative research. But the limitations must be stated clearly. The core issue is self-selection. The probability of inclusion is unknown. Quotas post-stratification and calibration can improve alignment on observed margins, but they cannot fully correct for unobserved traits correlated with both participation and the outcomes of interest, political interest, trust, digital engagement, time, availability, and related factors. The practical risk is that opt-in data can generate apparently precise estimates that remain systematically biased on population levels. So the point is not that opt-in panels are bad, their best uses are different. They are often excellent for studying associations, mechanisms, heterogeneity, and within sample dynamics. They require caution when the claim concerns population distribution. At this stage, the distinction can be summarized simply: if the research question is primarily about population distribution, the probability panel should be the benchmark. If the research question is about relationships, mechanisms, or rapid attitudinal movement, the opt-in panel can be extremely informative, especially when used with transparency and appropriate inferential restraint. This brings me to the point I most want to underline. The project does not force a binary choice. It offers both instruments in parallel. This is not redundancy, it is a strategic advantage. Parallel availability turns trade-offs into something we can measure. When the two panels are fielded side by side or comparable topics and time windows, we can benchmark convergence and divergence. We can quantify topic-specific distortions. We can test when calibration helps and when it does not. We can identify which constructs are relatively robust across recruitment regimes and which ones are highly sensitive to selection. This is especially valuable for the domains at stake here: contentious issues, political orientations, trust, attitudes towards science, participation, and civicness. This could also be a way to make trade-offs in terms of both costs and bias reduction visible and publicly comparable. You can ask, what do we gain and what do we lose per wave and per euro for different types of research claims? That matters for research design, for cumulative knowledge building, and for the credibility of any public-facing conclusion. So, in conclusion, I'm certain that the scientific community should thank FOSSR not only for building these instruments, but for building them together. Their coexistence combines rigor and responsiveness. It also produces cumulative knowledge about bias, costs, and measurement performance. That strengthens scientific credibility and improves what we can responsibly claim about attitudes, polarization, trans, and civicness. So, congratulations and thank you again.
Thanks to you. Thank you very much. While I remind the audience to close the microphones, because sometimes we can hear voices, I give the floor to Sveva, Avveduto, thanking again for their contributions, our discussants.
And thank you very much, first of all, for having invited me to this very relevant and important panel and activity. And I'm really very, very honored and pleased to be here. The previous discussants have said a lot. So I try to combine my topic and my ideas and trying to not to repeat what the other discussants had already said, which I agree totally with them. Just to present myself, I'm an emeritus research director of the National Research Council, and I focuses my activities on science policy, on gender and research talent. I am the Italian delegate at Women 20, which is the G20 engagement, one of the G20 engagement groups. And I am or I have been the head of working groups at the OECD and of numerous European Commission projects and advisor to the Women 7 G7 group. I also direct a Cnr group, which is called GETA, which means Gender and Talent Observatory. And I'm the president of the Association of Women in Science in Italy. I will focus on the topics which I think that come out from the analysis of this excellent work done by the researchers. And I think that there are two key areas that have been fully addressed among the others, but two, three which I consider, considering my background, which are fully addressed by this project. One is science policy, and the other one is gender equality. And both of them, I think, are of particular importance and are absolutely evident in this project. We have been told that we know that the process is not completed, it's underway, and it already gives a number of highly innovative results for Italy. It has been said that we tried to give this kind of information in many European or even national projects, but has been always difficult, if not impossible, to have them. And from now on, it will be possible. And this project not only aligns us to the other European or non-European countries which already can dispose of this kind of instruments and of data, but it provides also many services to many stakeholders, different kind of stakeholders, including, which I think is important, researchers and scholars, and particularly the young people, because they are perhaps entering the research career and have more difficulties in moving in this area, and they maybe just meet the new technologies, or this project gives them a number of instruments, exceptional interest and importance. And I have to say that also the most important result of this of all the panels, all the 3 panels, is having met the request to have relevant, correct, and quickly available data of high quality. We might have data of such quality, we might have data after a long time, but having the possibility of getting data so quickly and with such an important high quality is really something totally non-existent in our country. Let me also consider something concerning my experience with W20, which you might know, it's one of the engagement group of the G20, and this W stands for Women 20, and of course it deals with all the problems and the questions and issues concerning the question of women. And we consider a number of topics that need data and are not easy or sometimes impossible to be found. We deal with financial and economic issues, with STEM education, with artificial intelligence, care economy, climate justice. And the important thing is to say that our result, the result of the Women 20 group, it goes directly to the G20 and influence the G20 activities via the final communique that each year is prepared by Women 20 and enters to make part of the final declaration of prime ministers, presidents that make the G20 group. And of course, having this very high level of people which are preparing the final declaration, it influences policy and politics of all country. I must say, for being totally true, that of course not all government take all the questions which we rise up and give accordingly policy different pathways, but still the declaration is there, and the means are given, and if it would be possible to have to make changes, they have the possibility of taking this instrument and having this, as I repeat, this possibility of having this data quickly and available and so complete and so totally total high quality is absolutely important, and it can influence not only, of course, policy and politics of our country, but of most countries. I can remember the G20 is a number of high level or anyway of high economies, and this will be very important. Let me consider also another important result of FOSS. This project places the social sciences at a different level. I won't say at an equal footing with the art sciences, which are still considered the real sciences, while social science are a sort of cadet sciences. This bias is given by the convinced people are convinced that social science don't give significant results in the sense that they don't give immediate benefits. However, of course, we all agree, I know that I speak to a very sensitive audience in this sense, that the implication for national and international policies and the advancement of knowledge, social sciences are extremely important, also if they are neither immediate nor quantifiable financially. And I would conclude saying that just for this reason, no private individual or firm or whatever would be interested in funding this kind of activities, and the state, the public institutions must take care of it through a public body like CNR, and because this one is research for the public good and gives this item, this is research for the public good, gives an added exceptional value to the project and to its results. Thank you very much, and congratulations again for all your activity present and future. Thank you.
Thanks to you again. I think our speakers now take the chance to intervene and to react. So, as you prefer.
Okay, if I can start if it's fine. So I would really like to thank all the three discussants for their comments and suggestions on the services that we have presented. I think that all the three presentations helped us to broaden a little bit our perspective. So we spent the last 3 years in trying to get to the last mile to deliver these services, and there can be the risk also of becoming a little bit too narrow, right, on our perspective. So I think that all your remarks help us focusing on some aspects that we didn't previously considered. So one aspect I will mainly focus on what Dominique mentioned before. So it was also clear to me, to us, that Pulpo, it's really important to foster collaboration among researchers in the experimental social science community. So as I said before, Italy is highly it's really active in this domain, but it's also fragmented, and so it's a way of creating, I think, synergies among researchers that are already conducting this research and also are interested in conducting this research in the future. But I think that to me was not as clear the second part that Dominique mentioned before. So the advantage that Pulpo might have for the collaboration between the research community and the policymakers community, because as I also mentioned, it's important to use behavioral experiments for causal evidence, so that policy can be informed by experiments. It was less clear to me the other aspect that can also be really interesting, not just to provide these results to the policymakers community, but to have the policymakers community involved. And maybe we can think of using, I think, Pulpo as a way of creating synergies. I was thinking while you were presenting that maybe it's possible in the future to create some calls in which policymakers can be interested in providing ideas of some interventions that can be tested. These proposals can be selected, voted, and then there can be some research groups that are interested in collaborating with policymakers, conducting the experiments and having feedback again. So I think that this might work as a way of creating a new community that is a more hybrid community. So maybe we can think of creating a community that is not just populated by researchers, that I think is important, but also by policymakers, and having also their contributions, so their proposals that can be then discussed and evaluated by researchers and possibly tested and implemented. So thanks a lot, Dominique, for this suggestion. My answer to your question at the end is why not? I think it's a very good proposal, and we may want to think in the future about this possible collaboration. So thanks a lot.
Dominique, I think you want to quickly reply. I see your raised hand, so
yeah,
please go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt. So yes, the point is that policymakers always remark the fact that researchers are a bit, let me pass the term, arrogant in a sense, because they say researchers pretend to know what we need to know. Okay, so they autonomously produce evidence that they expect us to use, but they don't listen to us beforehand and do research that we really need. So that's why literature points to the fact that connections is important, and it's important to involve and keep engaged the policymakers in all the process. So also in formulating research questions, for example. And now you have provided an identity of, a whole branch of researchers that use experiments. So at least they know where to go to identify also, universities or research groups that could answer their questions, actually. So I find it a very, very good opportunity and a lot of potential for that.
Thanks, Dominique.
Thank you.
And also, I think it's really important the fact that policymakers should also not be upset by null results and unexpected findings. This is also very important for the scientific community, because we know that otherwise there are results that will never be disseminated and published because of this bias. So there were a lot of interesting points in your discussion. Thanks a lot.
If I can answer to the comment by Nazaria Solferino that asked for the availability of data, of microdata in particular, of our panels. We will consider the request, especially if the request come from young people, young researchers. And in particular, we will have an evaluation committee, and the priority will be given to young researchers, as I said, and to the research made in the public interest, not in private convenience. Microdata and aggregated data will be available. Aggregated data in the form of report will be available for all the people on the website of FOSSR. And microdata will be available on the open platform that FOSSR project is building. At the moment, is not completed, but is at the end of the building. These restrictions are necessary because we need to comply with the Italian Data Protection Authority and also with the ethics committee's assessment. So this is important also for maintain the quality, the high quality of data. Also, I want to make thank you to all the discussants for the really important things you said us, for the possibility to compare our idea with yours and to improve our ideas and to go at the end of the project, but this is not the end, no? Because this project will continue over time if we can, if we available to do that, and also your contributor is important for this aim. So, Andrea.
Well, thank you, Loredana. Just to say thanks also from my side to the three discussants for their valuable comments and a real thank you. I want just to emphasize one point raised up from Salvatore Vassallo about the synergy between the probability panel and the non-probability panel. I want just to emphasize that we are in touch, the ORP team and the IOPP team, and the real value of having both the type of panels integrated in the same infrastructure, as I said before, is to contributing to set an evidence-based ecosystem that can support policy design and evaluation, and also can enhance the potentialities of social science research in Italy. So the point is to strengthen the quality and the usability of evidence available for researchers and policymakers, with the strengths of one type of panel and the strengths of the other type of panel. We are not competing, we are collaborating, we share our opinion, our views to enhance, to get better, and we are very well stimulated by all the teams that are with us. We are only the representative of larger teams, and I want to share the compliments, the congratulations with all the researchers that day by day work on this project, and I'm sure that both Loredana and Giulia do the same. So thank you for this very, very productive session, and I leave the floor again to Rita for the concluding remarks, maybe for Emanuele Reale, right?
Yes, there will be a wrap-up by Emanuele Reale. I don't know if we can take just a couple of questions from the audience, if there is any. Or, as you were anticipating, we can give the floor directly to Emanuele Reale, who will make a final wrap-up of the session. I don't see questions, so I can.
You don't see questions? Okay.
No.
So thank you to everybody and all people that have presented and discussed all the results. I'll try to pick up a few elements that to me were the most important to formulate some takeaway messages. For me, one important element, the first maybe, is that we have high frequency individual data, which are definitely a public good because they are owned and managed by a public research organization. So they are public good, but we have to exploit this potential. The last question in the chat, for instance, for me is indicative of the fact that people has not really aware that we are producing not research resources for our own research, but we are producing resources for the research of all the scholars in Italy and beyond. So this is the most important things. Let's move to the access to these resources, exploit the potential of having these high frequency individual data collected. The second point for me is that indeed the variety of approaches that by design FOSSR enabled has been extremely hard to build, but is extremely promising as well. We have an open integrated public research infrastructure, which is an unicum in the national landscape, but also an unicum in the European landscape. And it's important for the years coming to empower this integration with continuous exchanges between the researchers involved and trying, especially for the two panels, YOP and HORP, trying to find very, very good integration and synergies in their development. This is extremely useful and necessary for the good of our research effort. Also, another important point is to increase and to study how to improve the capability to supply evidence-based to policy making. I'm a bit skeptical, I must say, to the possibility to find univocal causal connections between phenomena. But anyway, finding good connections and anyway relevance is an important step for our knowledge. Be aware that this could be an important item, especially if we can build around these tools, panels, laboratories, those that in literature are called as productive interactions between policymakers and researchers around what is the useful information that can be used also in policy making. Last lesson, I think and take up a message that I want to leave is also that one important element that Giulia in her presentation pointed out is the advantage of this realization to overcome fragmentation of the field. Now, fragmentation is a key issue for our fields of social sciences. And I think that now we have also a step in which we can move on to increase networking with other existing initiatives of panels and laboratories in Europe and in Italy. I mean that what we are always doing during the time of this project, and we will do also in the next future of the project, not of the project, but of the infrastructures, is to maintain and enlarge the linkages and the connections, possibly the collaborations with other opt-in panels or probability panels that are in place in Europe. And I think that also for the laboratories, the creation of the network of laboratories is a great realization for the results. So this is another takeaway message for you and for me to some extent at least. And then the other point is sustainability, of course, but I think that sustainability, maybe I'm a bit romantic in this, will come if there is a sound research method and quality of what we produced, because then if people recognize quality, they also recognize advantages of quality. And that's the final comment from my side. I hope to have been in time with the timetable, and I wish you a lovely afternoon, and I am looking forward to meet you all, possibly in person tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks to you. Thanks to all the speakers or the discussants, and also I would like to mention the authors of the policy brief. I know they are in the audience, so I'm sure they know. And you will receive an evaluation questionnaire just briefly after the closure of the session. So all the audience will have the chance to say a word on this session. And again, thanks also to the colleagues of the communication team who worked a lot in preparing both the policy brief and the policy session. And again, as Emanuele was saying, we hope to see you also tomorrow. This is just the opening of the first days. So tomorrow and the day after tomorrow the general conference and the demonstration session on Friday. Tomorrow it will be online and in person here in Rome at the Cnr headquarters, while on Friday just online. So we hope to see you all there, and have a great afternoon today. Goodbye.